So probably the most surprising game out of week 2, besides the Eagles blowing that game against the Falcons, was probably the Raiders at the Ravens. I really thought this would be a get-right game, especially how the Ravens were so close to actually beating the Chiefs in that opener. But I really thought they were going to come out and just pound, just destroy the Raiders in their home opener, but they shockingly lost against the Raiders at home with Gardner Minshew again, back-to-back weeks, throwing for 250. I don't know, man. Maybe the Raiders will be good this year. Who knows? Wilder things have happened, so, Raider fans got to be pretty happy. They got to be pretty fired up because that was a huge, huge win in week 2. Antonio Pierce might be really legit. Obviously, he got the head coaching job for a reason. He did a good job stepping in a year ago, so who knows? There was a few predictions from a few quote-unquote insiders and whatnot that Antonio Pierce would be a one-and-done coach, only be there for a year and then probably get canned. But if he keeps this up, man, if the Raiders finish competitive or like a playoff bubble team or maybe a playoff team, that dude is not going anywhere. So good for him, good for the Raiders. And he's just a pretty likable guy from everything I've seen and heard from him. I mean, even the advice he gave Tua, that comes from a place of just being grounded and knowing what actually matters. So I like Antonio Pierce. Brock Bowers might be pretty legit as well. As expected, he was the 12th overall draft pick, was a beast in college, so good for the Raiders. Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Gardner Minshew tearing it up. Hopefully he keeps it up. And yeah, man, just might be a fun underdog team to maybe pay attention to for the rest of this year. But for the Ravens, man, I don't even know where to start with these guys. I mean, that defense definitely in question. We all knew it was going to be worse when you lose a great DC like Mike McDonald, but yeah, just blowing that fourth quarter lead, not great. And even offensively, it took forever for the Ravens to actually get the lead. And I know the Raiders have a pretty decent defense, but still, you're at home. You're supposed to be Lamar Jackson. You're two-time MVP, right? If you can't beat the Raiders at home, who can you beat? Houston, the Chiefs. That Bills game is going to be pretty fascinating once that comes up. Bills, Ravens, Sunday Night Football. But, yeah, just kind of an inexcusable loss, man. Just really concerning times if you're a Ravens fan. And they are currently 0-2. At the bottom of the AFC North with the Bengals. Browns are 1-1. Steelers are 2-0. AFC North is always a pretty wild division in the NFL, and I feel like it's going to precede its reputation again this year. Looking forward, the Ravens have a marquee game against the Cowboys, 4:25 window at Dallas. Now, I know a lot of people love to exaggerate after every week in the NFL, especially early on in the year. Everyone's excited for ball to be back. No one knows how to really contain themselves, but this is definitely a must-win game, and I'll tell you why. I mean, first of all, they're 0-2, and the percentage for 0-2 teams to make the playoffs is already remarkably low, but you add that with kind of like a competitive division, like the AFC North, I just feel like it hinders your chances of making the playoffs even more. And not only that, it's just the Ravens kind of have a brutal schedule for the first part of the year. So they're at the Cowboys, then they're back at home against the Buffalo Bills, which one can argue the Bills look like arguably the best team in the league right now. I feel like Josh Allen, man, he looks different this year. I don't know if it's only Granted, it's only 2 games, but I don't know. I just feel like there's like a different pep in his step. There's a different look in his eye this year that I've seen, and I really feel like he's on his way to being an MVP this year. He just looks different, bro. And like, it's weird. Maybe it's just getting rid of the Stephon Diggs toxic aura. I don't know. And I know he still has to grow with his new kind of cast of weapons and whatnot, but the dude just looks different this year. I can't even explain it, but definitely pay attention to him regarding the MVP race because I feel like he could definitely take that sucker home. They have the Cowboys, and then they have the Bills, and then they have the Bengals on the road. So it's possible that they could go 0-5, honestly. Like, it's very possible that they could do that. Will they do that? I would imagine that they would hopefully win one game, but even like the Cowboys game, the Cowboys got completely embarrassed in their home opener against the Saints. They're going to be plenty pissed off and plenty prepared for the Baltimore Ravens. And my only concern, if you're a Ravens fan in that game, is I don't know how good this Ravens defense really is. I feel like Dak, CD, and company has the potential to kind of carve them up. But yeah, I feel like it's definitely a must-win game, man, because you can't go 0-3. You can't go 0-4. Like, it's just tough. Like, if they do lose that game, to be down 0-3 and then to come home against the Bills on Sunday Night Football, there's just going to be that extra amount of pressure, and I don't think Lamar and company are really up to the task. And I don't know what the stats are for 0-3 teams to make the playoffs, but it's got to be extraordinarily low. Is kind of like a death sentence, more or less. So I really feel like this is definitely a must-win game, and it's crazy, man. Every game matters in the NFL, every single game, and anything could happen too, because football, NFL, it's the ultimate team sport, and with that, there's so many different levels of variance with each position battle on the field. That's why any team can win any single week. Doesn't matter if you're terrible, you're supposed to be good. You just need a few guys to kind of dominate in their certain areas, get the right momentum, have the right energy, and then it could just happen. Just look at the Raiders, man. You know, no one had them going to Baltimore and winning on the road like that. So let me know what y'all think about the Ravens. Do you think it's a must-win game? Week 3 at Dallas. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people can talk bad about the Bengals as well. They're also an 0-2 team that, in my opinion, they're also in a must-win week. They're at home against the Washington Commanders, so they really need that one too. And I think they'll get it. I hope they get it, because Joe Burrow looked pretty legit on Sunday against Mahomes, and that was kind of an iffy game. Bengals easily could have beat them there, but they didn't. I just feel like right now I have a lot more faith in the Bengals compared to the Ravens. I just trust Joe Burrow a lot more than I do with Lamar Jackson, and I just feel like Joe Burrow has more weapons at this point in time, except for the running back position. But then again, Zach Moss looked decent last week against the Chiefs, so maybe he'll turn a new corner and play at a new level this year. We'll have to see. But I just think we've seen what the Ravens are and what their ceiling has been the last 3-4 years with Lamar. Honestly, I hate to sound like a hater, but I just don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl. I just don't think he's that sort of leader. I don't think he's that sort of overall quarterback. And Davante Adams had a quote earlier this week saying Lamar Jackson is the NFL's all-time best ball carrier, and I probably have to agree with that. Yeah, there's some other dudes up there as well. Barry, Gale, just human joysticks. But Lamar is pretty special, and as a ball carrier, he's one of the best to ever do it. But as a quarterback, man, I just feel like we've seen his ceiling, and they had a golden opportunity to really make the Super Bowl last year, and they blundered it tremendously. I just don't think he'll win one, let alone ever appear in the Super Bowl. Unless something happens to Mahomes, then all bets are off the table. But yeah, man, I think the level of concern definitely has to be high for the Ravens this year, and it's just it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Ravens in the next couple of years, because I don't really know where they go here. They might have to do a little retool, reset, especially if the defense doesn't play up to par. And that's the Ravens' identity. If you lose your identity, you kind of have to go back to the drawing board. So, gonna be fascinating to see what happens, man. Let me know what y'all think. That's all I got for right now. Peace.